Uh, First of all, I want to congratulate Pranay on bringing out this book. There is nothing more special for an author to see his or her book actually in a bookstore. And so therefore today is a very special day, I know, for Pranay to have this book out here at Higginbotham. I've been going through the book and it's fascinating to see a young author actually delve into issues of love, forgiveness, of occult, of just the sense of loss and belonging that you bring into the book. So congratulations, Pranay, on bringing out this book. I think he deserves a very warm applause that someone has dared to do books like this and actually venture into this area. I know as a book writer myself, how for an author, a book can be an extremely exhausting experience. It takes a lot out of you. And I was asking Pranay what prompted him to actually go on this adventure, and he said COVID. So the lockdown period obviously allowed him to express his creative energies, and you can see that in this book. We'll of course talk about the book during the course of this evening, but I think it's important to have young Indian authors express themselves in their own voice. I don't know how Pranay made the transition completely though from being a mechanical engineer to being an agro entrepreneur, educationist, social activist, to even winning a Zilla Parishad election, to now choosing to write this book and then getting the book published worldwide. That's a remarkable journey, and at your age to have done it, fantastic. I think you deserve a lot of praise for what you've done. All I can say is more power to you, and I'm sure you'll tell us more about this journey of yours. And thank you once again for having me here in Bengaluru.
So it'll be really great if you can maybe read 2-3 lines on the book. So we all are waiting for that moment. So maybe if you can just pick few words or few lines from the book, it'll be really great for all of us.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to start right at the very top because I think the central character in Pranay's book is Jay Stanner, and the first chapter is very much on that. And let's start with that, and then we can have a free-flowing discussion around the book. Excitement, euphoria, and elation are the emotions I hold at this very moment. I felt so thrilled to be here. The comfort of being with my best buddy and lead vocalist Aidan Gill, our bassist Russ, and drummer Cross seems so illusory. At times I have to remind myself that all of it is real. Our band, Soft Division, started a few years ago and I'm the lead guitarist. It all seemed like a joke when we blew up a few seasons ago. Our original 2 albums made it to the international Billboard charts. Since then, our lives have turned, all 4 of ours. The raging crowd draws me back to the real world and I dance around the stage. I connect with my bandmates as we play, not enough to wreck the music of course, but just enough for one to see that we love rock and enjoy performing for a living. I lose the ability to breathe for a moment as the rhythm plays and the crowd chants. My spirit soars after realizing how much the audience admires our music. Throughout the night, the entire audience continues to hum with us and move along to the rhythm. So in a sense, this is where it all starts. We'll talk about the book, and maybe Pranay, I can start by asking you as to what led you to write this book. Was it just COVID, or was it that Pranay, while sitting in a village in Belgaum, was dreaming about Europe and dreaming about being a guitarist?
Yes, sir, possibly. That's true, sir.
Your hairstyle reminds me of one of those rock guitarists. So there is this a personal journey, or is this book basically just your creative impulses?
So basically, sir, COVID was one of the main reasons, because when lockdown started, it was all of a sudden, and a lot of people who were younger than me also started to succumb to the virus. So I couldn't do anything, I felt helpless, sir. So what I had to do was, I thought that I'll write a book, and whatever I get, I'll give it to charity. So keeping that in mind, I started writing, and I started feeling better, sir. And these are basically experiences from friends, some of my personal experiences, some of my friends' experiences. So all of them are put together, sir, in this.
Because interestingly, your central figures are the rock band,
Yes, sir.
with Jack as the
Yes.
Jake as the sort of central figure of the band,
Yes, sir.
and then they experience death.
Yes, sir.
You know, they overdose,
Overdose.
and one of their friends passes away.
Yes, sir.
Is that again, a book at the end of the day, the emotions that come out there, the fact that there is this wake-up call that they all suddenly get, that they're living life at a high as a successful rock band, and the next moment one of their friends passes away out of an overdose. What's the message that you wanted to send out? Was this again, as I said, just your creative impulses at work, or are these all living people who you have at some stage or the other had to encounter, people who've gone through these highs and lows in their lives, people who've then looked for love and forgiveness and a second chance in life to sort of revive themselves? Tell us about the journey.
Yes, sir. It's partially true, but the thing is, a lot of people, when they get second chances, they don't take it, and they take certain things in life for granted. Like someone we take it for granted that we'll meet them tomorrow, but we don't know that for sure. So it's better to cherish the moments that we're living right now, and forgiveness is very important, so I think, because like self-forgiveness is important. Before forgiving others, we should first forgive ourselves and then forgive others.
Because, the book is about this rock band,
Yes, sir.
and the lead artist in the rock band who suddenly finds his whole life going upside down, and then rediscovers himself on a trip to Europe, and rediscovers love in the form of Yasmin, who has her own ghost to battle with. Who is Yasmin in your life? You have a Yasmin in your life, or who sort of gave you the second chance in a way in life?
It's not about me, it's my wife, sir.
But for a young man to write
Yes, sir.
to write about this darker side, there's a darkness in the book also. The fact that you've got a woman who's battling the ghosts of her past life. You've got the main character who's got his own moral dilemmas to deal with, particularly after a friend of his passes away of a drug overdose. Do you think this is true of life, that all of us here have our own sort of inner ghosts, inner battles that we are waging,
Yes.
and each of us wants to somewhere or the other express themselves at times, possibly through books. Not all of us can write a book, but some of us express those inner feelings through books.
Yes, sir. That's true, sir. A lot of us express it through books, and other people have other ways of expressing, but each and everyone is going through something, sir. Something or the other. Just some don't tell it, and some say it out aloud, and some write books.
The only thing is that, this world of Europe seems a long way away from your world in Bengaluru.
Yes.
Zilla Parishad leader, a social activist there,
Yes,
is
sir.
writing about Germany, Belgium, France, you're sort of, giving the reader a sense of a world which seems completely miles away from your world.
Because I studied there, sir.
You studied in
Yes,
Germany?
sir, in Germany, sir. And I was there for about 6 years, sir. So I traveled a lot and with a lot of friends and learned a lot of things, sir. So all that came rushing back. And so the social service angle was from my school days, sir. First time I had gone to Bhuj after the earthquake, sir, social service.
When the earthquake happened in
Yes, sir.
2001, from school you went
Yes,
to
sir. Yes,
Bhuj.
sir.
Tell us more about
Yes,
that.
sir. So I went there with some friends from school, sir. One of my friends, they live here, sir.
Yes.
So
So you all left Doon.
yes, sir.
The
During
blue-
vacations.
So you did what Rahul Gandhi should be doing. He's also from Doon. He should also have done what. But go ahead, tell us the story.
Yes, sir. So there's a village called Ludia, sir. And near that there's another village called Gandhilogan. So we went there, we built toilets. We were in class 10, I think, sir. And we plastered walls, we built check dams. And we stayed in Bookies, sir, there. And we did all that. And after that, while coming back, I got malaria, falciparum malaria. I was admitted in the hospital for 15-20 days. I thought that was the worst feeling. And sir, while in Gujarat, I saw the people, they were so happy. But I knew what they had just gone through. So I just felt that I could do more. Even though I was doing, sir, I felt that I could do more. Because what they're going through.
But you didn't choose Bhuj as a center for this book. You chose
Yes, sir.
Europe.
Yes, sir.
You chose Europe and characters in a sense who are, very American in
Yes,
many
sir.
ways.
Yes,
Both James and his sister Pearl,
Yes, sir.
very much into American culture. So you choose American and European characters.
Yes, sir.
Was that again something that was part of your years that you were in Germany, that you encountered such people?
Yes.
Or did you believe that you wanted a book that could cross culture, that you could be an Indian writer who could successfully write a book on Europe? Was that the aim, that I would rather break out of my culture and write about another world? Would you have thought of writing on Belgium?
Yes, sir, I would. But the thing is, sir.
Next book is on Belgium.
Yes, sir. The thing is that I've seen all these things happen to people, sir. So that's why I thought it's a fit topic for my book. And I didn't think of it as a topic. So first I just started writing on my phone and then went on to writing on my laptop. So.
Oh, you first started writing on your phone?
Yes, sir.
Just your inner thoughts?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because I think what COVID did to a lot of us is that COVID reminded us of just the sheer mortality, the fact that we don't know, death could be around the corner, the fragility of life, and in this book, you're never far away from a twist wherein the darkness comes back. Just as you think that people have fallen in love, they've discovered each other, the ghosts of the past continue to haunt us. Again, is that because the lockdown period, you thought, has taken all of us through periods unimaginable periods, where we suddenly felt very lonely and were looking for comfort, looking for a sense of belonging?
Yes, sir. The lockdown period was horrible, sir. And that was the time I almost, I thought I need to see a psychiatrist or something.
Really?
Yes, sir. But I just decided to write, and it helped me, sir. And sometimes I would get a writer's block, so I would just write a parallel storyline with the same characters, and then get back to my original book, sir. So there's a parallel book to this that I've written while writing this, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir. That was my way of dealing with writer's block, sir.
So it's almost as if the book became a part of a healing therapy.
Yes, sir. It saved my life, sir.
It saved your life.
Yes, sir.
So instead of needing a psychiatrist, you needed a book.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
I find that fascinating because I think all of us during the last couple of years in COVID have looked for something else in life to hold on to. I used to stay up in the night and watch old cricket matches. And I saw one match of the great Karnataka cricketer Gundappa Vishwanath, 1974. I kept looking for it, finally found it on YouTube. He had scored 97 in a famous match in Chennai. And I discovered that, and suddenly all the depression that I had was lifted. Watching Vishwanath bat in that match, and it is 20 or 40, almost 50 years ago, 1974. So we all found our own ways of dealing with loneliness, dealing with the darkness in our life. You found it in a book.
Yes, sir.
You want to tell us your favorite character in this book, the one who you think is closest to Pranay?
Yes.
Who is Pranay Patil in this book? Is it Jay Stanner?
No, sir. No one's like me.
No one like you?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Jay Stanner, basically, sir, no book can be 100% fiction, sir.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
So there's somebody out there who's a bit like you. Who's that person?
But no one in the book, sir.
But is there a passage you want? I'm going to get him to read his favorite passage out for us. Pranay, you want to read a passage that you particularly like?
I'll read the introduction, sir, because
Yeah, please.
after writing the book, what I thought the audience should know, and I wrote it down in the
So the introduction was something that came to you after
Yes,
you had
after.
finished writing the
Yes,
whole book.
yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Life is sacred. It is a beautiful gift of time, experience and love, but is terrifyingly fragile. As we live our lives, it is so easy to coast and not enjoy the precious time we have on earth. Time flies when you are having fun, but also when you are not paying attention. One moment, you're a bright-eyed college graduate entering the workforce, and the next, you're attending a retirement party with your name on the cake. In the blink of an eye, your prime days can pass without warning. People have their own unique ways of enjoying their spare time. Most people live for the weekend, grinding away at their 9 to 5 job until Friday night. This cycle repeats over and over, becoming a cruel habit. Repetition breeds mindlessness, which only encourages the clock to tick faster. Yet, much of the population has no other option, so they instead opt to maximize their spare time. Some people spend it at a bar, others outdoors, or some spend it with their family. Instead of physical experiences, a growing percentage of the population is opting for a different type of escape: psychological trips. Recreational drugs, once enjoyed by or reserved for either rock stars or junkies, are quickly catching on in the general population. With the legalization and regulation of marijuana in many regions, recreational drugs are also becoming safer. Yet, people still want more. They go for the harder drugs that produce an amplified experience that alters their mind and reality. Venturing outside of the regulation can create incredible experiences, but can also breed addiction, overdose, and a trip in a hearse. Often, all we need is a wake up call to realize the dangerous lifestyles we lead. The morbidity of death is the most common type of shock. When someone very close to us is taken away, it creates a well of many emotions. Of course, sadness, but also regret for not making the most of our time together on earth. For some people, it can also bring guilt. While death is a natural part of life, it is easy to feel guilt for not stopping it. These wake up calls are life changing, but they are also necessary. They require us to take a hard look at our lives and the dangerous choices we make. Often, loss can be exactly what we need to change our lives for the best. But this realization doesn't come easy. It is difficult to forgive ourselves when death is and in our minds, or in and on our minds and hands. It is a process, not an overnight fix. Therapy, rehab, and professional help is a great option. In Burgundy Winters, Jace finds self-forgiveness through a French tour guide, Yasmin. Forgiving oneself is the final piece to the puzzle following loss. There is a time for mourning, but changes need to be made to break the cycle. This book follows the journey of two young individuals as they break away from their destructive habits and find forgiveness, understanding, and even love. Burgundy Winters is not a glamorous and fluffy romance novel, but instead an inspiring tale of overcoming addiction and abuse and finding real beauty in a cold, cold world. Lots of love, Pranay, Patil.
Pranay, we also wanted to know what made you get into charity and why did you decide that all the profits will go into charity? Like, what made you get that decision?
Yes, because during COVID, I felt very helpless, as I mentioned, and it was all of a sudden. The lockdown was too sudden, and a lot of people didn't get rations, and they didn't have basic food to eat. So, and I was used to going out and helping people and doing things, and I was sitting at home on a couch, and I felt so helpless that I couldn't do anything. And so I decided. So that started to take a toll on my psychological health, mental health. And that's why I made up my mind before writing the book that all profits would go to charity. चलता है नहीं चलता है बाद में देखेंगे पहले लिखते हैं that time. Then
So Rajdeep sir, I have a question for you. So we just want to know your views about wellness and mental health and addiction. So what do you have your take on this?
You know, I think as Pranay's introduction just now showed, we all are facing the demons in our lives, but are unwilling to actually confront them because we are scared of what would happen if we actually confronted the demons in our lives. And I share some of Pranay's sense of concern and loss during COVID times. I mean, there were times during COVID because our entire lives had been disrupted, and you had friends who passed away suddenly. And frankly, it does take a toll on you somewhere mentally. As I said, my therapy was listening to, was watching old cricket matches and listening to music. And actually going back and spending more time with my friends than I ever have in the previous 10 years. Because you suddenly realize that there are things in your life that you're missing out on. In your 9 to 5 job or 9 to 9 job, you're just so obsessed with work that you don't realize that time is passing you by. So I think we haven't invested enough as a society, as people in mental health. Look at children. Suddenly young children who are, imagine a young kid going into nursery and KG, suddenly finds that school has stopped and for the next 2 years has to do school from home online. I mean, it's absurd to my mind to expect nursery and kindergarten and first standard kids to really have a school education without being in the company of friends, without having a physical experience of having their schoolmates around them. And yet, how many schools have invested in the mental well-being of their young children? How many of them have really invested in having the kind of psychiatric help that maybe some children may need? But it's not just children, it's adults. I mean, parents have had an even more difficult time. How do I ensure that my kid remains vibrant, active, and involved in life? And I don't think there has been enough attention paid in this country to that during COVID times. The digital divide. People are being asked, to learn their homework online when Wi-Fi doesn't work properly in some areas, where parents have one maybe mobile instrument to be shared between a family of 4 or 5. This is the reality of a digital divide during COVID times. How have we addressed it? So I think, what Pranay's sense of almost being, getting feeling, this sort of morbid feeling of, I almost feel like, he felt like sort of committing suicide, almost as he says. If it happens to someone like him, imagine the number of others who had to confront their demons that lie within. So I think, book writing for him was his source of therapy. And I wish that we as a society were able to provide therapy to all of us here. And we haven't. Which is why I think COVID has done, we are looking at COVID death tolls. The WHO figures are challenged by the government of India saying they are exaggerated. What about the toll it's taken on people who perhaps lost their jobs in COVID times, as millions of Indians lost? Who's going to address that? So I think that's where books like this become a source of solace almost. That there are stories that can be told, and if you tell those stories well, it makes you feel better. That's a form of wellness.
Okay, so now it's the time that we finally unveil the book, the moment that we all have been waiting for. So yes, we request the dignitaries to kindly step forward, please.
Good evening, Rajdeep Sardesai. I was about to say Sardesai. Watched you on television, national television. So good that I get to rub shoulders, not literally with you, of course. I'm at good social distance, I think.
Don't worry, I'll come there.
All right, sir. Welcome to Bengaluru. I'm doing a little bit of anchoring also here. And over to the author, Pranay, Patil. I just got to read, some extract on the web about your background. And, you hail from Gurgaon, correct? And I think I also given some interviews in this local flavor called Kannada. Local flavor,
Yes, sir.
called Kannada. I think you're comfortable with Kannada also. Fine, sir. No, just to hear this Kannada sound, because no word has come by so far in Kannada. So I thought we'll just create some.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನಾನು ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಅಂತ ಫಸ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಸರ್ ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡನೇ ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡನೇ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಆಂಗ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆನೂ ಕನ್ನಡನೇ
I'll tell you, after KGF, Karnataka is now the number 1 state even in Hindi film industry. Right?
Okay, right.
I interviewed Yash, I think about 10 days ago I interviewed Yash. And we got so much of reaction. People were saying that never before had so-called national TV made Karnataka star the number one star of the country. So you have reason to be proud. You now have your number one. You had a prime minister 25 years ago. Now you are the number one film star of the country. So Kannada is the flavor of the season.
Fine, now back to the book, what actually matters here. Over to Pranay, just to know your thoughts on choosing this title, Burgundy. Why Burgundy? Why not Burgundy Winters? That's the question. Thank you.
Burgundy, I was thinking of something red, something warm, something Christmassy, and something also connected to blood, morbidity, and love. And I was just discussing this with my wife, and then suddenly my 7-year-old daughter came and said, Amma, why don't you use Burgundy? And then I was shocked. And I didn't know what to say, but it was the perfect word that I felt, Burgundy. It defined the whole thing. Thank you.
You would prefer a Kannada translation of the book, right?
Sir, I would probably do that.
You want a Kannada translation of the book? Acha, you are ready to translate the book in Kannada. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any more people with some questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Shankar again. I work in my work. A nice place. So he is very busy in social work. How is he able to write this book? And I want to know.
That's a very good question. Where did you find the time
Yeah.
to put yours? Because as I said, a book can be emotionally exhausting. So the police officer wants to know, where did you find the time to actually put together a full book, Pranay?
COVID gave me time. Lots of time and nothing to do, sir.
So you sat at home alone?
Yes, sir. My family was there, but I was basically I couldn't go out anywhere, sir. So I had a lot of time on my hands. The first lockdown, especially, sir.
And how long did it take you from the time you put that first word into a phone
Yes,
to when you finally said, I've got a full book ready? How long was that period?
about one and a half years, sir.
1.5 years.
Yes, sir.
Wow. I think it's important to realize that writing can be extremely lonely. It's just you and your computer, or you and your laptop, or you wherever you choose to write. To actually put together all your thoughts into a book in that manner takes a lot out of you, I think, in terms of your emotional energies, your physical energies. So, all credit to you, Pranay. I hope that your family was there by your side. I mean, your young daughter was not upset that father is spending more time writing a book than with me.
No, in fact, sir, she used to scribble stories and then she used to tear off pages. So I used to call her jokingly an unpublished author. So she used to keep doing. She wrote a short story. It was a love story between a mare and a stud called Horsey and Belcher. So those kinds of things she keeps doing, sir. So she likes writing. My parents also supported me, my wife, my kids.
Right.
So she gets all the writing from you only.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Actually, I belong to the same city from where you belong to. I'm from Kerala. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And I want to ask you one thing.
Yes, sir.
This writing just came as an idea, or is it going to be a passion? And you want to pursue this passion in your life. Just because COVID has come, you had some idle time, and you wanted to express something, and you want to get rid of your certain clutches in the life. So you just settled on yourself to writing a book. But this is a passion, or it just came as a.
So it is a passion.
It's a passion.
Because I've been writing.
Pursue this passion forever.
Yes, I don't mind. Sir.
Is it your maiden credit title, or you have any other books already in your
It's my
credit?
first book, sir.
Is it your maiden book, and maiden book is being unveiled by the great Rajdeep Sardesai? What best compliment that you can definitely, you have a very good opening, I can say.
Thank you, sir.
No, not at all.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You have
No, in fact, I asked Pranay today that you see, he comes from a political family. His grandfather was a minister in Virendra Patil's government, I think. father was a MLC. He's been in the Zilla Parishad. So I said, you know, politicians writing books is unusual. He said, no, I don't want to remain a politician anymore. Because he says that it involves too many compromises. And he's probably right. You know, it's becoming more and more difficult for good people to remain in public life. So maybe
Journalists are always free to express.
so as a writer, he can express himself without any pressures in a manner that even news anchors cannot. Frankly, you know, when you are writing a book, I think a book is extremely personal. It's cathartic. It enables you to, you know, I think, and maybe Pranay can express that. How has this book changed your life? As a result of this book, how are you different today than you were 2 years ago? How has it changed you as a person?
So now I value friends, relationships a lot, sir. Earlier I used to think if you're related by blood, it's everything. But that doesn't matter anymore, sir. The thing is that loyalty, friendship, kindness, and like your parents who stood by you during tough times, or your wife who's there with you. If someone doesn't stand with you, no matter even if you're related by blood, and they're not with you during your toughest times, then it's not worth it, sir. Then it's not a real bond, sir. So I've begun to believe that having a blood bond is not the sole criteria for having someone in your life, sir.
You know, your parents and your friends are here. I'm going to ask your dad what Pranay told me today, and maybe we'll get the mic to Mr. Patil then. Are you okay with the idea that your son says, I don't want to do politics? I mean, you know, nowadays politics is full of dynasties. Every party has family politics going on.
Yeah, so it's the second part which he wanted to mention rather than so personally I feel that it's not necessarily that blood is thicker, but the friendship is thicker.
Friendship is thicker than blood. That's what I think. Interesting, because in the book itself also, you know, it is about discovering friends through relationships, and they can happen in the strangest of circumstances. For you, out of all these characters, who is the one that you think represents that friendship is critical to life? Here you've got a rock star who is overdosing with his friends. One of them passes away. Sister takes him to Europe, discovers love. He discovers love with Yasmin. For you, who represents that notion of friendship and belonging in life?
So that's Aiden, sir. Aiden Gills. He's the best friend that dies. So if it wasn't for that, all this wouldn't have happened, sir. So I think he's the anchor for all these things that happen, sir. He's the reason for it, sir. The change in Jace.
But I want to ask you one question which I think is interesting. You also have a ghost figure who keeps coming in and out of a book. What drove you to that space, to almost discover the supernatural that sort of flits in and out of the book? So you have all these relationships taking place, and you have a ghost-like character who's coming into the book and then out of it. Tell us a bit more about that.
So because the ghost from the past also was an actual ghost. Because I've been fascinated with the Romanian emperor during the 15th century, 14th century, 15th century, Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. So I've been studying up about him. It's just an interest. I like historical figures, I just study that. So he used to impale enemies and put them on the border of Wallachia.
Really?
Yes, sir. So even though he didn't have a big army, so when someone used to come to attack, like the Ottomans were there, they used to come, they used to see, oh, this guy does this to his own people, what's he going to do? It was psychological warfare, so then they used to go back. So he used to do that. So this ghost is one of the people that has been impaled by Vlad Tepes, and now he's come back to haunt them, that sort of thing.
So you looked at a historical figure,
Yes, sir.
and you wanted to sort of bring that historical
yes, sir.
figure in some way into the book.
Yes, sir.
And as I said, all of us face our own ghosts. I mean, we can go around the book. I can ask you, ma'am, what are the ghosts that you're battling? And we all sort of, I think, in our lives have this other side, the darker side, that we are wrestling with constantly, which Pranay brings out very well in the book. I think that's the strength of your book, that there's light and darkness. It's not just on light. Just when you feel that the couple is going to have are going to live happily ever after, the ghosts of the past return to haunt them. So I mean, this sort of interplay between light and darkness. You think that's what life is about? I mean, has your life? You went to Doon.
Yes.
Now Doon is all kinds. There are young Doon friends of yours also here. Living in Delhi, I can tell you, there are two visions of Doon. One is defined by they are all the entitled children of the elite. Whose parents were ministers or prime ministers and therefore or businessmen. The other is that there is a new generation of younger people coming who don't have all those benefits. Coming from a school like Doon, do you feel privileged that gave you a huge jump in life, that you had an advantage over all your contemporaries?
No, sir.
The man there asked you, would you write a book in Kannada, for example, talking much more about your Kannada roots than you would about Europe?
Yes, sir. Sir, I feel privileged, but not because I got a jump, sir. I got a jump because it inculcated within me social service, gave me one of the best friends that I'll ever have in life, sir. And it taught me that everyone is equal. Like in school, we were not even allowed coaches. So everyone is equal, so we don't know who's who and whose dad's what. Like we're just friends or not friends, sir. That's it. That's how school was, and it taught us that everyone's equal, sir. Like we were allowed only outings on Sundays, and you could get a limited thing back. You couldn't show off, basically, sir. So that was a very good thing that was inculcated within me because of the Doon school, sir. And I feel privileged because I can use that in my life to help people out, sir.
Is that where your social service?
Yes,
is that your, out of all the things that you do, and you do lots of things, is that what gives you the greatest satisfaction, helping others?
Yes, sir. That is. Yes, sir. If I can't do that, I feel very helpless, sir. That's what happened during COVID.
It's interesting. A similar question I asked Yash, the film star, who also said something very similar, that he feels happiest when he's able to help someone else in life. So it's not, he's a celebrity, huge film star, but it's, I guess, when you are able to help someone else go ahead in life, the satisfaction you get is much greater.
Yes, it's immense, sir.
And the book itself, who is your target audience? When you write the book, you're thinking who's going to read it? Was it younger people who may want this sort of dark, light romance about relationships, about life? Were you looking at younger India, your generation India, an India of people in their 20s and 30s, very different to my generation? So who was your target audience?
So, I was looking at youth, like I'm 35 now, so I was looking at people still in their teens who might get addicted to drugs, like the hard stuff, like coke, cocaine, and things like that, sir. Heroin, like real hard stuff, who might get addicted. So maybe if they read this, they understand that there are very real consequences to drug abuse, sir. So it's for the young adult populations.
That's interesting, because I think again that's an issue we don't confront. There are lots of people around us who may be taking the odd drug out there and believe that that's normalized. Before they realize it, they can overdose on it, and that can be destructive, as you say in the book. So in a sense, again, you're revealing the darker side of society.
Yes, sir.
This is not a feel-good book until you reach the end when you have a happy end.
Happy, yes,
But through the book, you can go through various emotions of feeling good and then feeling not so good about life.
yes, sir. Yes.
So it's not just about wellness.
Yes, sir.
I think in a way, for all of us out there, this book is a great read in the times in which we live. And because of that, I would recommend Burgundy Winters to all of you to read, because life is not just a roller coaster. Life is a roller coaster. Life is not just about joy, but it's also about sadness. And how we cope with sadness in a way defines us as people. And I think that's what makes your book special, Pranay. I once again
Thank you so much.
want to say that it's great that you actually went on this adventure. It takes a lot of courage to put your views on, to put pen to paper. Very easy to say, you know, another book. But writing a book is not easy. And for you to have done that, and how old are you now?
35, sir.
35?
Yes.
My God, okay. So there's a huge age difference. And that you did it at the age of 35, I think he deserves a huge round of applause for taking us on this adventure. Well done. Well done.
A very, very warm welcome to you, Pooja. So yes, without further ado, now is the time that we all have been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. So now is the time that we are going to be unveiling the official Indian book of Burgundy Winters in Europe. So are we ready? Yes? So we request all of you to kindly proceed towards the book and do the unveiling for all of us, please. So yes, audience in the joy that you're part of me, let's have a round of applause, let's make some noise. Wishing Pranay a very, very happy congratulations and more success to you. So yes, Pranay Patil, the author and social activist here for all of us. So yes, we request all of you to kindly have the look and feel of the book and unveil this amazing book.